It is known that there are two ways to create a successful franchise in the NFL. You can have a franchise quarterback, or you can build a team around a pretty decent guy. Not someone that's going to be the face of the franchise, but someone that is going to play pretty well. Welcome back to the show. I am Josh Blinder. This is Blitz with Blinder, and so glad to have you back for another episode. Today, we are solely going to be breaking down why teams have been trying to outsmart the NFL, why they have failed, and why some of them have actually succeeded. To start it off, America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, they are biggest example of this for, the last 30 years. And you go immediately back to a little bit of a piece of history and the relationship troubles that Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson had. Jimmy Johnson is like the grandfather of the draft system, in which that you take the picks and give them values for what they are worth. This was a tremendous coach. He had success in college and won Super Bowls with the Cowboys and had a pretty brief stint until he was brought into the Hall of Fame a couple of seasons ago. A whole emotional thing. The reason I bring him up and Jerry Jones is the Dallas Cowboys, it's very well documented, have not been back to the NFC Championship game for some time. When you start to look at it, there are telling signs of why they have not been able to. And the first one is paying the wrong quarterbacks. Dak Prescott, for example, right now is the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League in terms of what he's going to be making over the next couple of seasons. I've got it all pulled up. But $60 million for a total value of $240 million through 2028. Compare that. The next guys, 2 and 3, are Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. Hold on a second. Do you think that Joe Burrow and Josh Allen are on similar level? You probably do. You might have a preference for one. If you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan, you're going to prefer Burrow. If you're a Bills fan, you're going to prefer Josh Allen. If you're into the stats, you're probably going to go with Burrow. Might have liked him a little bit more in college with the pedigree of winning a Heisman, winning a national championship. But there's no debating that they are on a similar class of level. Then there's Dak Prescott, who is making more than both of those guys. And not just that, they're going to be having to pay Micah Parsons here pretty soon. Myles Garrett, the likes of $40 million. Hendrickson trying to earn something around 35. Mike is going to be likely the highest paid player in the history of the edge position in the National Football League. And then another teammate, CeeDee Lamb. And how much money that CeeDee Lamb's making in that $35 million vicinity. So you get all of what I'm saying. The Cowboys are going to be paying, once Micah is, 3 different players at premier positions. People can argue maybe left tackle is more important than receiver or edge, but there's no doubt that wide receiver and edge rusher are in the top 4. Quarterback's number 1. And the fact that Dak Prescott, who is not in that top 6. He's likely not in the top 10 every single year. Some of the years, like last year, injury troubles, he's not an elite quarterback, even before that. So the main point we'll immediately make right now is the best way to make your team uncompetitive very quickly is to pay your quarterback a whole bunch of money. So Jerry Jones is thinking, this is a very good roster. We're trying to reload because we're going to be making a run. We've had a couple of good seasons. 12 wins 3 years in a row with Mike McCarthy. Last year didn't work out so great, so they end up getting rid of him. But overall, the Dallas Cowboys under McCarthy were very successful. But no, Jerry Jones isn't happy with the continued success and wants to tear it apart. So they go with Schottenheimer. He's had a long tenure in history in the National Football League, but Jerry is trying to reinvent the wheel. He's trying to come at that success, thinking that Dak Prescott is Troy Aikman, that their running back position, which is not equating to what Emmitt Smith was for the Cowboys, those very good defenses that Dallas had. They don't have those pieces. They were able to get a lot of capital in that Herschel Walker trade. Jimmy Johnson was able to fleece the Minnesota Vikings. And look, they got Herschel Walker out of it. Fantastic. They were able to build through the draft. The Cowboys go and they give up a future 3rd-round pick for George Pickens. Guess what? George Pickens is coming up on a contract year. He's been productive. Something around 900 yards, 5 touchdowns a season throughout the first couple seasons of his career. But if he puts production like that up in 2025, he's going to want to earn something around $25 million, likely, might even be pushing it a little bit beyond that, something around the Devontae Smith mark. And that is a huge concern for Dallas, is you're going to have to pay George Pickens. And George Pickens, let's say he doesn't work out, maybe gets injured and he just doesn't work out. He doesn't mesh with the Cowboys locker room. They're going to have problems because you just gave up a third-round pick. That could have been a quality player we just saw in this past 2025 NFL draft. It wasn't a very strong 1 through 10, but 10 through 80, my goodness, you were finding starters for the next couple of seasons. The very best way, on the converse of that, paying a quarterback that doesn't deserve it in Dak Prescott, and I understand going through the draft process, the best way to build without a franchise quarterback, like look at the San Francisco 49ers, and why I bring them up is because they are on the cusp of potentially handcuffing themselves. Remember a couple of seasons ago, not too long ago, 2017, 16, 18, when the San Francisco 49ers were a laughable team amongst the worst, picking very, very high in the draft consistently. They picked higher than the Chicago Bears in 2017. They took Solomon Thomas. The Bears took Mitch Trubisky. And a couple of seasons later, fast forward, they're in a Super Bowl, losing to Kansas City twice. So don't think that the 49ers can't go all the way back to where they were just 7-8 seasons ago. My whole thought process about San Francisco of why they could be potentially the next Cowboys or even worse is because that roster is aging. They gave up all those picks. Remember, they traded up 3 first-rounders to be able to get Trey Lance. That didn't work, but they were able to hit on Brock Purdy. Fred Warner turned out to be great. Dre Greenlaw became a great player. Ayuk, Debo Samuel, all these guys developed. They go and get McCaffrey for pennies on the dollar. But a lot of these guys have aged. McCaffrey is having some of that injury trouble. And Brock Purdy, without Brandon Ayuk, without healthy Christian McCaffrey, without the pieces around that offense, you could see last season, again, injuries on defense, last season he heavily struggled. So he might be a great driver of the car when it's a Ferrari, but what about when it's a Honda Civic? Is he still going to be a good race car driver? We saw last year that he was not able to do that. There is supporting evidence of why he was picked as that last pick in the draft. That is supported. I mean, he had record-breaking seasons. We understand that at Iowa State. But overall, Brock Purdy was picked last. Mr. Irrelevant in the NFL draft for a reason. Mobility, the arm. We're going to pay this kid $50 million a season instead of being able to, again, lost Dre Greenlaw to the Denver Broncos. They were able to re-sign George Kittle. It's going to be tough to bring back some of the players that have brought this team together. Debo Samuel, he's gone now. They're already losing parts of that team. I'm saying it right now, and you can come back to this in a couple of years, that this is going to end very poorly for San Francisco. They've been great because of Shanahan's play calling. Is Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo a huge difference? That's where the conversations behind closed doors get extremely interesting, because I do not think that there's a huge gap between those quarterbacks in terms of arm talent, in terms of accuracy, in terms of decision-making. Both of them went to Super Bowls, right? With very similar rosters. So San Francisco 49ers could become the next Dallas Cowboys. A very interesting one was the Jacksonville Jaguars taking their first overall pick quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Of course, this thing's working out, and Trevor plays relatively well. They get into the postseason. Remember that year where they were able to have a tight game against the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round after they beat the Los Angeles Chargers. The last couple of years, there's been injury trouble. The Jags roster just hasn't been all of that great, and they're working through some things. So they end up paying Trevor Lawrence $55 million. The same amount that Burrow's making, the same amount that Josh Allen is making. So they made the decision that Trevor Lawrence is on the same level as those two players. And you know what? They just gave up a first rounder next season so that they could take Travis Hunter, jump up 3 spots. They gave up 36th overall, a slot where they could have taken Quinshon Judkins. It's hard to see that, because you're playing in one of the worst divisions in the National Football League. I think that the AFC South just might be the worst division in football. And you're paying Trevor Lawrence all this money through 2031. Another example of a team that's just not going to go anywhere, because we come back. The San Francisco 49ers were able to have that success because they had Brock Purdy on a rookie contract, a serviceable guy, someone that can play well. Remember Dak Prescott competing with a very good Green Bay Packer team back in 2015. For a couple of years, they were very competitive and had a good team. A couple more examples of how it didn't work out. The Cleveland Browns, go ahead, pulled the trigger, Deshaun Watson, bringing him to Cleveland. We saw the Arizona Cardinals deciding, let's just go ahead and pay Kyler Murray a first-round pick. Let's pay these guys in the 40s of millions of dollars a season. How's that working out? Arizona struggling to compete within their own division, to have a winning record in most seasons. And are we that much surprised? They're gutting so much of their roster, paying a quarterback. That was good. Kyler's extremely talented. But the likes of recycling that and continuing to pay a guy elite or top 12, 15 quarterback money when they could be putting those resources into somewhere else and drafting a guy every couple of seasons. So this was what it comes down to for me is, again, you can have that elite franchise quarterback, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. There's very few of them. Obviously, there are only 5 or 6 of them. A couple of teams like the Green Bay Packers are going to be serviceable with Jordan Love, and they're going to be fine. It's worked out for Jared Goff. Justin Herbert hasn't had the success in the playoffs, but again, he's a very capable quarterback and going to be very good, even within the gauntlet of quarterbacks that are in the AFC conference. But those teams that really want to hurt themselves, the New Orleans Saints, and you pay Derek Carr a whole bunch of money. Now, they got extremely lucky that he's retiring now. A perfect example. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are paying Baker Mayfield right in the middle. The production, fantastic, had a career year last season. This is the type of guy you pay. Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams, they win a Super Bowl. So they're paying him the likes of, $40 million a season, and that's ranked somewhere around 15, 16. That is how you build a great... They have draft capital. That's the best way to be able to play. Well, the Chicago Bears are an upcoming franchise because they've got a rookie quarterback. The Minnesota Vikings, they're not having to pay Sam Darnold. Although you would have liked to know what you got in Sam Darnold, paying him $40 million a season would not have made that much sense. You got him on a rookie quarterback. See what you have in J.J. McCarthy. If not, you're able to cycle and it didn't cost you all of that much. The New York Jets with Justin Fields, it could work out. Fantastic. He's the guy. They're not having to pay him all that much. It doesn't work out. It doesn't cost them all that much. C.J. Stroud and why Houston's got 2 full years of that window being open because he's on that rookie deal. He's not going to be getting paid the huge money until, a season or 2. So it's enough with these teams trying to outsmart the league, thinking that they could be making this shot. This guy is going to turn out to be the next great thing. Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa going down here. Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith, the Raiders, Derek Carr. All of those decisions, the New York Giants are in this predicament that they've been the last couple of years because they paid Daniel Jones. All these teams hurting themselves for the future and keeping them well away from contention because they paid the quarterback instead of, maybe let's draft a guy like Green Bay. They had a franchise quarterback, a spectacular quarterback, MVP, and they still drafted a quarterback to continue to develop because they knew how important the quarterback position was, giving him time. Instead of the New York Giants and what they're going to do with Jackson Dart, just thrust him in there if Russ gets hurt or Jameis, or they're not playing well, so they're going to go with the rookie. What is the New York Giants' plan? They're going to develop him over the next couple of years. Are they patient enough to be bad in 2025, which they likely will be in a very tough division? Bad again in 2026? They're going to be able to wait again? No, they're likely going to put Jackson Dart in. He's going to struggle with an extremely tough schedule. That schedule is horrendous for New York, and it's going to be for 2-3 more years. So do they have the patience to truly develop him? If so, Dart has a chance. But if not, he's thrust in there, and they ends up firing their GM, Jonah. They end up firing Brian Daboll, and it's going to be another cycle of New York not being able to completely figure it out. There are teams that continue to get it right, like the Green Bay Packers, and there are teams like the Dallas Cowboys that are overpaying, and Jerry Jones wants to make moves that are smarter than everybody Pittsburgh Steelers, they made a mistake with George Pickens. We're going to pick up this guy, and he's going to fill in, be the perfect number 2. There's going to be no culture issues. He's going to fill in perfectly. This cannot end well for the Dallas Cowboys. So thank you very much for watching all of this. We're going to be curious what maybe feedback you have, what types of videos you would like to see in the future on this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.